There's nothing like the smell of a freshly baked pecan pie. Golden, gooey, and full of that sweet, nutty crunch. Today I'm going to teach you how to make this Southern classic from scratch, and it comes out perfect every time. For years I would try pecan pie. I wanted to like it, I just didn't like the flavor. Well, whenever I found this recipe, that all changed. I have used this recipe for so many years, I don't even know when I started. But it's called the Savannah pecan pie. And whenever I make this pie and other people try it, they also are hooked on it. And today we are going to do a different spin on a second pecan pie. And what I will attempt to do is to create a healthier version. In place of the dark Caro syrup, I will be using maple syrup and a little bit of flour to hopefully come up with the same flavor of pie. But I will be showing you how to make the regular standard version of this pie, and the other pie will just be bonus to see if it turns out. If it turns out and it tastes as good as the other one, that's how I will be making it from here on out. Because anytime I can convert a recipe over to a healthier way, I'm all for it. So follow along with me and let's see how this turns out. And I already know that the standard recipe is going to be amazing. So we'll get started now by making our crust first, and then we'll make up the filling for each of the pies. So we're getting our recipe here out of the Farm Journal Best Ever Pies. This is my favorite pie recipe book. It's an old book. So we'll be using the extra flaky pastry crust recipe for these two pies. Okay, I have all my ingredients here, and I had my bowl out in the garage so that it would be nice and chilled, and you don't have to do that, but it's just one more step to make sure everything stays cold. I already have a couple of videos out making some different pie crusts, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail here about how I make the crust, but I will step you through. But I will say that the primary thing you always have to watch for when you're making homemade crust is make sure everything is as cold as possible. So make sure you don't overwork it with your hands or anything like that. So we need 4 cups of flour. I already have it measured inside of the sifter. You don't have to use a sifter. I find that it produces a little bit better results, but it's not needed. And the next ingredient is 2 teaspoons of salt, and I'll just put that right in there on top of the flour. And then I have a cutter here. I'm gonna stir the salt and flour together with that. I have a 1.5 cups of lard here. I softened my lard and then I pre-measured it, and then I put it back in the refrigerator to chill so that it would be cold before I use it. You can buy lard in the store. I bought some leaf lard and I rendered it down myself, but store-bought lard will also work. I like these measuring cups because you can get them pretty clean. You can get most of the stuff off pretty good. So now I'm going to cut this lard into the flour. And usually I just try to chop it up into bigger pieces and get it all coated with flour before I do too much cutting in. It just helps it to not be quite as sticky. I just keep cutting it in. And the goal is to get small pea-sized little flakes. It helps when you have a bigger bowl like this to do this step. If it's too small, it makes it a lot harder, I've found. Some people will work this with their hands. I'm a little hesitant to do that and fear that I'll warm up the lard too much. There, that looks pretty nice. Just nice little pieces of fat in there. I always start out with a measuring cup with more than enough water and more than enough ice in here. And after I know that it's chilled, I take out the ice cubes and I measure out 1/4 cup of the ice water. And now we're going to put this egg in with the ice water. And then we'll take our fork and we'll stir that in together with the ice water. And you want to make sure that your egg is cold also. Take it straight out of the refrigerator before using it. And we're pouring this on top of the flour and lard mixture. And then we'll stir it in. A lot of recipes you want to go in slow with that, but it takes at least that amount. Typically, I wind up adding a little bit extra ice water. Some days the humidity is up and I don't need it. So basically, I'm just stirring this together with the fork, keeping my hands out of it for the time being. And once it's mostly incorporated, I'll go in with my hands just long enough to pull it together. All right, to see if this is gonna hold together or if I need to add more water. I think if I wet my hands, that may be enough water. All right, I think it's gonna hold together. I'm gonna press these out into the size that I'll need for these crusts. Actually, I probably will just do 4 while I'm at it. And get some saran wrap out here. And I'll get my crusts in here because we're gonna put these in the refrigerator. I try to flatten them out just a little bit so they chill quicker. And I try to get rid of the rough edges so that when I'm rolling it out, it'll be a little bit easier. All right, I'll wrap up the other 2 and get these all in the refrigerator. While I mix up the filling for the pies, I'm going to get this turned on to 350 degrees. Here are the ingredients for the 2 different pies, and we're going to start out with the traditional, which is the Caro syrup recipe. It calls for 3 eggs, and we'll whisk those together just until combined. And then we'll put in 1 cup of Caro syrup, and this is the dark corn syrup. And by using the dark Caro syrup and the brown sugar gives it that nice rich filling. And we're going to do 2/3 of a cup of brown sugar and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. I like to round it up a little because I like plenty of salt in it. It enhances the flavor of the pie. And then 6 tablespoons of butter, melted. And I'm going to mix that together. And you just mix this until thoroughly combined. And then it calls for a cup of pecans. I always round my cups up because I like to make sure I have plenty of pecans in here. And on the top I have some full pecans, but I really prefer the broken up pecans, but I didn't have quite enough. So I just finished out the cup with these. So you can put whatever your preference is though for that, if you like the whole ones or pieces. And then I just stir this together. Now, if you like the look of it layered all over the top of the pie, you can lay them in the bottom of the pan and then pour your filling over top of the pecans, but I like them mixed together. I just feel like that also adds to the flavor. All right, that one is already done. See how quick that was? Now it's time to start on the next one. And this is the one that I've never tried before, but I am so excited to give it a try. So we'll start with our 3 eggs. If you ever get a piece of shell, you can take your cut eggshell and go in there and it'll come right out. See there? Whisk these together. And then we're going to be putting 1 cup of maple syrup. So maple syrup is thinner than what the Caro syrup is. So we'll be using 1 tablespoon of flour. If you have issues with flour, you can use 2 teaspoons of cornstarch as a substitution. So we'll get that added in there. You're gonna wanna mix this really well so that there's no clumps in there. And then our 2/3 cup of brown sugar, our 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, and our 6 tablespoons of butter. And we're gonna whisk this again until everything is mixed together very good. And if you see any bigger pieces of flour, you can always press them out with your spatula. Okay, now it's time to add our pecans, and that was 1 cup. And we'll fold them in together, and that's all there is to it. I'm super interested to see how this comes out. Okay, it's time to roll out our pie crust. And I'm gonna dust the surface and get out one of our pie crusts. It's nice and chilled. I'll dust the top of this too. So we're just gonna keep pushing, rolling, and turning. And by continuing to rotate it, it helps it to stay in a round shape. That's the goal anyhow. And if it starts getting sticky, you can add a little flour to it. I try not to overdo it with the flour, but you need a certain amount to keep it from sticking. You can always flip it over if it's sticking underneath and dust that. And if you want to know how big to roll it out, you can use your pan. And you want it probably close to 2 inches bigger than what the diameter of the pan is, just so you have enough to do the fluting on top. When it gets bigger like this, it's a little harder to rotate. But it's still a good idea too, because you want to make sure it's not sticking underneath. I feel like that is going to be big enough. Oh yeah. That's plenty big enough. So I'm going to roll this back and make sure that it's not stuck underneath. Get our pan over here and we'll set that inside and pull this other side over. With this pie, you want to make sure you do not have any holes inside. I see there's one right there. So I'll show you how to patch that. I have had one leak before. And the thing is when it leaks, it gets up under the crust and you wind up with filling up underneath. And the problem with that is then the bottom crust gets kind of soggy. So I just put a little water on the spot where there's a hole. And I take a piece of the excess crust and put it right over the top of that. And I just press that into there and make sure that it's sealed up really good. Okay, and then I'm gonna lift the edges to make sure that this crust goes all the way to the bottom of the pan without stretching it. We're gonna trim off anything that's way too wide, and we'll just set it aside because we may need it. So you just take your edge of your crust and you just turn it under and you go all the way around, turning it under. And you get to a spot like this where there's one missing, you just take part of your other crust that you took off and you can slide that in there. And if it's too wide, you can pull it off. Some people like to make a bigger edge. I like to have enough to do a nice flute, but I don't like it to be extra big because the edges have a tendency to want to burn if they get too high. So now I'm just going to go along and pinch so we have a nice crisp edge along here. Kind of pulls the dough all together, gives you a nicer edge to work with. So I just kind of go like this all the way around. You can either use the knuckles on this hand, so you're basically doing this motion. There we go. All right, I got this one done. I'll get the other one done now. I wrote on the side of this pan so I could remember that this is the regular pecan pie And if it looks like your pecans need to be moved around so that they're even on the top, you want to do that right now. So now we'll put in our maple syrup filling. The only apprehension I have with this is that it will thicken up enough, but it should. We will see. I'm sure it'll still taste good regardless, but I'm hoping it works out because I'd rather use this method in the future. All right, let's get these in the oven. See the boy in there sleeping. I won't call his name though, because if I do, he'll be right in here. So the oven is preheated. I'll get this opened up. Grab our pies. I'll put our standard one on the right here. And then the maple syrup one over here. So the recipe says to set it for 50 minutes. And it typically always takes that long, so we'll just go with that and we'll come back and check it when it's done. I just wanted to take a quick break and show you one last time what our beautiful fall is still looking like. It's November 4th and we're about to lose all of our leaves. But we have had one of the most beautiful falls I can remember here in Western Michigan. It's so nice to slow down and just really enjoy the beautiful things that the Lord has given to us. Okay, let's check our pies. They look good. This one here looks like it's done. Yep. So when you insert your knife, you just want to make sure that it comes out clean. I think I'm going to give this one just a little more time. But this one here is ready. I think this one is as well, but there's a little divot there. I just want to make sure that it's ready. Look how good it looks. So we'll let this chill here, and then whenever it cools down enough, we will cut into it and give it a try. I'm curious if you can tell which pie is which one is the maple syrup and which one is the Karo syrup. I think it's time to cut into them and see how they taste, to see if the maple one is a success and if we'll make it again or not. This one is the maple syrup one, so I'm gonna cut into that one first because I'm anxious to see if it turned out. The pies are still kind of warm, but I have to go somewhere, so I'm hoping that doesn't pose an issue because it may not have set up all the way. We'll see. Actually, I think it's holding together pretty good. Let's cut a piece of this pie. My husband will be very happy. He loves Savannah pecan pie. I'd say it's his favorite, but he has a lot of favorites. I know for sure that this is one of his favorites. I'll have to see if I can ever get him pinned down to which one is actually his favorite. That one looks good too. I want to try the maple syrup one first. I'm just super excited to try it. Actually, that's really good. You can taste the maple syrup, but it goes really well with the pecans. Let's try the other one and see which one wins. Boy. I definitely like the pies when they're a little cooler. And I know what this one tastes like when it's cool. And it is, in my opinion, it's better. But I really think that using the maple syrup is definitely a close second. It very well could be a good competitor to this pie. The thing I like about the maple syrup one is it's a much healthier option. I guess what will be the real deciding factor is letting my husband try it, and maybe I won't tell him which one is which, and see if he can guess first of all, and then also see what his opinion is on it, because honestly he eats the majority of the pie. So I'd rather make it like he likes, but I would definitely say that it is worth a try if you want to have the healthier option. But if you just want to make a standard pie and you don't want to switch it up, This is a really good pie. You get the nice caramel color in here. So I hope that this inspired you to give it a try. I would love to hear from you if you try making either one of these pies. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it. Please consider subscribing if you enjoy content like this so that you'll be notified every time I upload another video. Thank you for watching. I hope that you all are having a blessed day. Bye for now.